Welcome to Spearfactor Spearfishing podcast. We have Mr. Matt Johnson, colorful character here, San Diego.
What?
Yeah, I would say San Diego veteran in every sense of the word. Fishing, boating, diving, making guns and all that stuff. Surfing, yeah. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Oh, appreciate it.
Thank you. Me. I'm glad we were able to link it up. We're here in my garage / arts and crafts factory / child care.
Workout room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Food storage. So anyways, we were just BSing about the shark situation and just shark stories, I guess. And let's just start off with the last time we dove the Coronados, you had said a situation that happened with you and your buddy where your buddy got knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
You want to just start out with that shark story? I mean, there's not much to it, but...
No, yeah, we were diving a spot, and me and another guy had just shot 20, 25-pound yellow, swam back to the boat, gutted him, and got back in the water. I swam out to the drop-off I was working, and... there was a couple dives I didn't realize it till afterwards that the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. Like something was watching me and I didn't know it, just like that weird feeling. A black sea bass came by, didn't even stop. They were normally, they swim right up to you. You play with them a little bit. This guy just, phew. So one of my dives, I came up and my buddy's on my boat just screaming at me. Great white, get out of the water. So yeah, Joe came up, he was down the bottom about 50, 55, and, he came up and there was the top 15 was kind of a murk layer, and then below that it was probably 60, 70 foot biz. And he came up, put a snorkel in his mouth, put his face in the water, and all I saw was jaws, the head of the great white, about 14 foot, he said. Coming at him, and just naturally put his gun out to block it. Now, it wasn't coming to attack him. It was just kind of like, hey, what are you? But those little touches hurt. And so that thing pushed him like out of the water to like right above his knees. And then he said he walked on the water. Now, I've known Joe for a long time. Joe's a combat veteran. And Joe was very shooken up. So, yeah, and he's not one to exaggerate. So, and I've seen plenty of 14 to 18 footers there at the island. So,
yeah,
they're there, but I think they're only there in the spring.
Yeah,
when they're transiting.
Season.
When they're transiting.
Okay,
the big ones.
Yeah,
when they're working their way down the coast.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about sharks, I mean, I run fishing trips and dive trips. I mean, last year I probably saw 25 different great whites throughout the season.
Really?
Yeah. Majority of them are all offshore where the tuna are. Very few along the coast. Seen a couple more of the islands last year. One day saw 2 different ones within about a half an hour, and I was driving 8 knots, so I know it wasn't the same shark that I passed. But yeah, 2 of them about 10 to 20 miles west of San Clemente. Yeah, right in the same area that we were diving on schools of fish.
Well, on the East Coast, I mean, during the wintertime, they're all off. Now that they track all these sharks, it's a trip. I mean, it really shows you, like, the pattern. There is a pattern. I mean, all animals migrate, follow the food source. But you can see they go from Massachusetts right off of, like, North Carolina and Virginia. And I remember seeing a post from a guy I follow on Instagram, and he was like, number 2 dive, of the month, and both times got chased out of the water by a great white, just offshore, jumping in, and it's green, and then all of a sudden you see him, and then if you pull up the little shark tracker, you're like, oh shit,
it's one of the tagged ones.
They're just there,
Oh, wow.
I mean, what you just see, like, oh, they're so concentrated in that one area off Virginia, off north, right there, and it was interesting because I think the thing is, I mean, I feel like we know just as much as the scientists now with all this stuff, Like, I never really gave it too much thought other than the old fishermen would share stuff, and you're like, okay, that's where I learned
Yeah, well, there's so much data now, and information's right on this freaking phone.
Yeah. Like my daughter on the way to her batting practice was looking up where all the sharks are.
Yeah. It's amazing the technology we have. I mean, there's a lot of sharks here year round, pupped, on the sandy beaches in Southern California, right. Malibu, from Del Mar all the way to San Clemente.
Yeah, Silver Strand
even so. Last couple, or actually, was it 3-4 years ago? There was a couple like 12-footers that were hanging out around Coronado.
Yeah,
a few years ago.
Some of my friends at the team said that they saw him. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're there. After that incident, when I dive the islands and the viz is under 40 foot, I wear a shark shield now.
Yeah.
I don't. I've learned to dive with it. It's not bad. It's not about. I don't care about getting decapitated. I just care about getting maimed. I don't want to be maimed.
Yeah.
The thing. If I knew the thing was going to come up and bite my head off, then that's fine.
It's over.
I wouldn't feel anything. But,
yeah.
But I don't want to be maimed. So.
It's funny because I understand that. I kind of follow that. Yeah, it's like this. The whole process of that sounds like a nightmare. And then, good luck surfing. With one leg or whatever.
Hey, there's a girl who surfs with one arm. But
yeah. I don't know if that'd be me because I weigh 230. I don't know how much.
Yeah, I've got
a lot of effort.
Bad shoulders and all that. I actually, you know what? A couple weeks ago, I saw a guy. I was surfing PV. There was a guy out there with one arm, man. If he was paddling for a wave, dude, I just was like, "It's all yours, buddy," because you know what? You're out there doing it, and that's awesome. So.
I'm already a bad enough surfer with 2 legs. I don't need one. Yeah.
I'm not a pro or anything. I surf, but I'm not. I'm not anything exceptional.
Well, when we were diving, one thing that was unique that I saw with your shark shield was, you mind telling us about that? What you do for your fin and the way you hook up your shark shield?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did wear it. Did I wear it that day?
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, because the viz was like 25 feet. Maybe?
If that, yeah.
20 feet. Yeah.
So. I actually have it on both of my fins so I can swap either side, but on the outboard side of my fins, right about 3/4 of the way up the what do you call that? The spine or the thing that runs up the side.
Yeah.
You drill a hole through your carbon fiber fin. I use the same bungee material that I use for breakaways, and I double it up, and then I use wetsuit glue to glue it in there so it doesn't get cut on the carbon fiber. And then just leave it big enough to where you can pull your whip through on your shark shield. That way, it's following you more than if it's just dangling off of your foot. Then it doesn't have a way to follow you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it keeps a little further away from you. When I first started using it, I had to learn how to duck dive with it, and not have it come back around and hit me in the back. The first time I ever wore it. It was clear water, hopped in, and there's sea bass, and I go to make a drop on some sea bass, and the thing comes around and hits me in the back. And you just feel like somebody punched you in the back. Not hurt, but it's like, holy shit. And you're like, oh, well, that's that, But it's a little different. You have to change your duck dive.
Right.
But
I think it's important. I don't know. I think, we dive for fun. And it's nice to come home to your family, And so if you are diving those areas, like you said, I've always kind of said this, poor viz, a lot of sea lions around, you're rolling the dice. And with let's face it, the increase in shark population, it's just an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic because, once again, we pick things to manage that we want to manage, but yet we don't truly manage them.
Right.
And
it's feel good. I think.
Yeah, it's if you manage. I've always lived by this philosophy, and I think if the environmentalists would actually think this way, we'd get a little further along and actually saving stuff. But if you manage one species, you have to manage everything, and man has screwed everything up on the earth since day one, just because we're smart.
Yeah.
But if you're going to manage a deer population, you have to manage a mountain lion population. You can't not hunt that. If you're going to manage a fish population and other shark populations, you have to manage the sea lion population and the shark population. But I think just being here my whole life and 40 plus years actually on the water remembering stuff, I've never seen this many sharks. It couldn't be healthy to have this many sharks.
Right.
So who knows where the balance is, but, you just got to start protecting yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree, because it seems like everything we do typically in a big government, anything is always so reactionary. Everything is reactionary. It's like, let's be proactive. But when you're talking about stuff on a bigger scale, all the bureaucratic bullshit, it takes a catastrophic failure to someone to actually acknowledge it, unfortunately.
And then it's usually too late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
but anyhow, I mean, I don't think they're that big of a problem for the vast majority. I just think that people need to start paying attention to it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think with all the watermen and, we spend so much time in the ocean, we legitimately care about all the animals. Like, nothing's a demon. I don't care if it's going to eat you or not,
Well, the thing with spearfishing, if you're spearfishing properly, you shouldn't look like a seal.
Interesting. So,
well, seals move a lot. Even when they're moving slow, they move a lot faster than we move through the water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, in great whites they chase things like a cat does, right? And so if you're stealthy and crawling on the bottom and moving slow and not making a lot of noise, then in my mind, I don't feel you look like a sea lion.
Right.
Crappy viz, the outline might.
Yeah.
But, in for the vast majority of the time, that's why I don't think a lot of freedivers or have been bit, California. Didn't we have another one end of last year, another shark bite up in North County?
Yeah.
And they've all been swimmers splashing. I think there's a lot to that. So,
and usually in the surf zone, you get, bad viz, poor viz. So
and you get those juvenile sharks that are learning, that are just getting big enough to start hunting the pinnipeds.
Yep.
And so they're like, oh, look, this might be easy. Let me give it a shot.
Yeah, I've seen it with animal training. I mean, I train dolphins and sea lions, and just with intelligent animals, that transition, that thought process.
Well, they say whites can actually reason. The more they're studying the brains.
Yeah.
I watched a few documentaries. They're thinking that they're one of the only fish like bluefin that can change their body temperature, and they're figuring out that they have a very good memory. So, I mean, how smart are they? Maybe they are really freaking smart.
Well, I mean, I've watched another documentary about that down in South Island, New Zealand. They were showing the sharks were able to, it's a theory that they were working together to hunt.
I saw that one. Yeah.
It was
they found that, was it years ago? There was another one that they did during COVID, and they were studying because so many more sharks came around because, that first 6 months of COVID, so little boats was in the, ships were running around the world. The noise was so little and less boat traffic. They started seeing so many more sharks.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that would lead. I guess I would give a little bit of credit to the whole boats at Guadalupe are scaring off sharks or something. Maybe.
No, I just think they're there. I mean, they're just more relaxed a little bit. I mean, it's kind of like us when you go to. You're not as relaxed when you're in your home as you are when your boss is watching you.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I watch what I say. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think it's the same kind of thing. They're like, wow, this is weird.
Yeah. I mean, they are just animals. We are too, I guess.
I mean, we're animals. We have that reasoning and opposable thumbs. That's the only difference, I guess.
I guess. So in your experience, I mean, you got so much time in the water and you have such a network of friends. Do you think that the shark shield works? I mean,
by far. I talked to a few people up in Santa Barbara that both had white shark encounters, and both were wearing shark shields. Both of them said that the shark circled them at 15 feet and would never come any closer while they swam back to the boat. If you look into the law down in Australia,
the Western Oz too, I think.
Yeah, the urchin diver or abalone divers. The abalone divers either have to have that cage they carry around or a shark shield.
Right.
Those are the only two acceptable items. Okay, nobody down there has ever been killed wearing a shark shield.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So I mean, I watch. There's so many YouTube videos of them towing, the fake sea seal with a shark shield, and all you see is that glimpse of that shark coming at 25 miles an hour and turns off like that.
Yeah.
From that shark shield. Jerry from Neptonics, I wholesale Neptonics gear and stuff out here, but, he told me he doesn't wear one down in the Gulf, and I don't either. The reef sharks really don't, bother, but he said he's tested it out, and he's like, no, even the angry bulls will not come near you.
Oh, very nice.
So, yeah. I mean, at worst case, take it, sea bass diving, you get a sea bass tied up, turn it on, put it on the sea bass, and then the seven gill won't eat it.
No, that's a good point. It's getting that time of year. So I guess that's a good topic to get on. White sea bass. I mean, I know, you won the contest the one year. I was there. I saw you win it by a couple ounces. Ray and I were exactly the same. Yeah. And then it came, I think my fish was a half an inch longer or something. In Damien's rules, it was like, he just called me. He's like, hey, you saw the fish? I'm like, yeah. He's like, can you measure it for me? I'm like, okay. So I measured it, and I didn't even know what it was about. I thought it was for, the stuff. But yeah, so yeah, Lucky Ray and I both, I can't remember Ray's last name, but Lucky Ray, that's what his nickname is. Oh, nice. Would you have any tips or with sea bass or, do you have a story like in your growth, like hunting? What year did you start hunting white sea bass? I mean, you've been diving most of your life. About 95, like really getting into. Actually, 96. I was in the hospital for almost a year, 95. But about then. That's before I had that accident we talked about earlier. It's about 94 that I really got serious spearfishing. Yeah, I'd always spearfished. Hardcore fishing, but about 94, 96, but back then there wasn't crap for white sea bass. If you got one a season, oh shit, that was good. If you saw a few, that was good because the gill nets were still, that's been the big reason I think that and the halibut fishing has came back so good. Is the gill net ban within 3 miles. I have heard that exact same thing from several people. Well, yeah, I mean, up until about 2002, that's when we really just started seeing a lot of sea bass and really showing back up. Yeah, thick. Stories. Wow, that one that I shot for that contest. Yeah. That one there, I still have the video on that because I was wearing a GoPro. I remember it was super green. It was green. I was actually diving up at Swami's that day. Oh, really? Yeah, I was diving at Swami's that day, and I went to La Jolla, and it was really crappy. So let's just run up to Swami's. Uh-huh. So hadn't seen anything all freaking day, and diving, and then I saw a black sea bass, and I was like, here, I'll get a little footage. I had my GoPro on, so I'm diving and following the sea bass around, and just out of the corner of my eye, about 30 feet away, I see a shadow, and then all of a sudden it comes clear. It's about 10 feet above me, and it's that sea bass. So I pull off of there, and I go to line up on him, and he starts to swim behind some kelp, and then in the video you'll see I got my gun hangs up on the kelp for a second. Thank goodness my slip tip didn't come off, and I purposely shot him in probably a foot from the tail because that was the only shot I had. I'm like, if I hit him, it'll be a good shot. Yeah. And so, about a foot, 18 inches up from the tail, I threw shafted right before he disappeared behind this kelp, and he took off. I had 3 black sea bass. That fish was 64 pounds, and none of these blacks were over 110. One of them had him in his mouth. As I'm remember that. I'm fighting the black, and then he let go, and I'm just pulling it up. 3 of them come shooting up after it, and I'm just like, wow. Seen some, 200, 300 pound blacks try to do that, but not the smaller ones. So that was a cool experience. Yeah. Fun. I forgot about that video. I remember the screenshots. I think you posted portions of it or whatever. Yeah. But I remember being super green, and I thought you were somewhere south of here. Let's put it that way. No. That was actually Swami's on that tournament. Yeah, cool. And that's the one you won by length. That was cool. Yeah. Yeah. Have you noticed?
But back to tips on sea bass though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say anything you have to perfect to hunt sea bass, especially because no matter what, a lot of sea bass are shot and dove on as they swim under people as they're breathing up. I mean, that's just the way it happens because the water's crappy as, and they just boom appear, and you better take your opportunity when you can get it. But learn how to exhale and dive without making a sound. That's number one key is making a drop without making noise or vibration for them to feel. I mean, I've shot I had so many of them diving down on them and coming up right behind them, because if you can get right behind them, they can't feel you.
Right.
And there's been a few I chased down, literally kicking as hard as I could, gun extended out, just waiting for them to turn, and they turn, and it's like when an animal takes something, like your cat or your dog, and they get caught, they look back at you like, whoa!
Yeah.
Like what? Something's behind me, and then all of a sudden you just
perfect.
I like chasing them down. That's why I prefer diving sea bass nowadays on reef structure instead of kelp.
Yeah, I did that last year. I saw all over the rocks and stuff. I've always hunted them before in the kelp, and then all of a sudden open water, basically just school size fish. I mean, just all over the rocks, and it was literally that exact. It reminded me of hunting parrotfish, where and clear deep water where you kind of have to just get 45 and hang below them, or hang enough to where they're like, what? And then you can take the shot, but you have to sneak up on them. Otherwise,
they're weird. I mean, there are so many times you're looking one direction, you go to get up, and then there's 3 or 4 right behind you, that just showed up in that split second. And then don't spook them. If you can, spooking is like a boom. If you hear a boom, that's not good. But if they just scatter away, that's fine. They'll be back,
Yeah.
They're just cruising areas.
So one thing that I've said too that I kind of noticed was like exactly what you said. Spooking them is you freaking them out. Going for a swim, you want them to know you're there so they come and check you out. Just be calm and move slow. But it's literally like every one that I saw last year, I just look over and it's like, oh, there's a seal. No, that's a sea bass, and he's right there. And then I wanted to ask you about this. When they turn and move, I know so many people, including myself, that have missed. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, I should have hit that thing. But apparently, like...
Well, that's like hunting moose in the tropics.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are like Matrix, woof! But, yeah, that open water... I mean, even a 50-pound sea bass can like turn its body in such a way that you just like, how the heck did they miss
right.
that shot? But if they're sideways and they kind of slowly go away and they get facing away from you, I would kick as hard as possible after them, because they're probably going to slightly turn to check you out and you might get a shot.
Right. Okay, that's good information.
But I think hunting them open water on the reef, the best way is kind of hunt them like you would hunt a snapper, lay on the bottom. Let them come to you and above you. Most fish, their predators come from above. If you can get below a fish, it's less, if that makes sense. Because their whole life from a fry, a bird's been trying to get it. Other fish are coming in even.
Yeah.
But then you come up from below, they don't feel from below.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like counter shading.
I think understanding your prey is where a lot of spearfishermen go wrong. They don't understand the physiological parts of that fish or how that fish acts.
Right.
I
think you have to think like a predator, and also how nature. I mean, there's counter shading. Everything is like look. We talked about great white before. They're they are going to ambush from below.
Whoa.
So like you said, when you get below them, if they do see you, they're more curious. Just like if you make eye contact with an ambush predator, the jig is kind of up. And that might save your life or cause a... I mean, I said it before with the animal training or just in general. I mean, animals are predator, and if you don't act like prey, they don't really are not sure because we're not used. They're not used to seeing. We don't belong in their environment, so they don't know. They're still trying to figure out what the fuck we are. So we don't.
I bet if a great white came up to you and you just started splashing and like in the water, I bet they would be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because sea lions don't do that. I mean, they jump around and splash, but if you like came after them, like a mountain lion or a bear, right? They say, don't run. Yeah, make yourself as big and loud as possible.
Yeah, and I think about it too, like badgers going at, you see a badger fight, scare off a grizzly bear for a kill. They're mean. And you're like, yeah, if we say like, don't be a soft target, right? You make yourself hard. It's not worth the animal. They're not stupid. They got to live. They can't take that injury. So I'm not saying go out and jump in the water with a great white and go charge them down. But if it comes down to it, as scared as you are,
I have no problem releasing a shaft.
Oh, I don't have a problem. Yeah, I'm going.
If he's coming after me,
yeah.
I know people have had to shoot makos. A few aggressive, sick makos over the years, but they're usually pretty fine. Seen a few big ones in the water.
I remember the one you guys shot or gaffed that had line wrapped around. It looked sick. It was real sick. Oh
yeah, that one came after a diver.
Yeah.
I got that on video too.
Yeah, I saw I think I saw the screenshots of it.
Yeah, the thing came in the thing had been 2 inches into its neck, 9 foot 4 inches, and just emaciated. It was eaten. Nothing went to waste.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing came by the diver and then went away. It was on a patty and then just did a U-turn and just came right at him, and he's swimming away and plugged him right in the head on a reel gun.
That's a good shot.
But I think being in there, it messed up all the sensories in there.
Right.
But it wasn't an easy fight. We got back to the boat and I hand lined the thing in and we landed it. If it's going to die, I make sure it goes to use. So,
right.
It wasn't like we went out targeting that shark or anything.
Yeah.
But
I was going to ask you about that because I was wondering, I know people that shot magos on a spear, and I'm like, so let me get this straight. Like, I've caught them when I was a kid growing up, and it's like, you're going to be in the water and pull that fucking thing close to you. Like,
well, makos and swordfish are a lot like Mark Morgan.
Yeah.
Shot a 3-foot mako one time. Thing came back after him.
Yeah.
Like swordfish, the guy in Hawaii shot that swordfish and then it impaled on him.
Yeah.
I have a philosophy. I usually don't, bother sharks because
I don't either.
Yeah. I do make those good eating. I prefer it over swordfish most of the time. It's not as fatty, but, there's occasional, mako problem, but I think it's very rare because like that one was sick, I think. And just like something to eat.
Desperate, like an animal with mange or something,
Yeah, exactly. They don't have anything to lose. So,
how does so back to the sea bass? I got sidetracked.
Mm-hmm.
I could talk about sharks all day. I don't know. But the sea bass, do you think, as far as time, when to go? What I've kind of figured out is like talking to people. Like my thing is, man, no current, like slack tide. Try to catch them logging, sleeping, whatever it is. Do you have have you found your own little recipe, or do you agree with that, or what do you think? I've heard so many things, low tide, high tide, and I really kind of think about just maybe slack tide, regardless if it's low or high tide. But have you found anything that you think,
There's a few things. I will say a slack tide is sea bass don't like current. They're lazy fish. They're some of the laziest fish. When the current gets ripping, they're usually down on the bottom. People dive and they say, "Oh man, I heard them croaking. They sound like they were right next to me. They were probably 100 yards away, if not more." That sound travels amazing in water. It's like when you hear a boat running and you look up and the thing's a half a mile away, but it sounds like it's right next to you, like an outboard or something.
Oh, yeah.
But a slack tide, anything where the kelp is still up, I'd say evening time is probably going to be by far your most productive overall throughout time.
I have found that as well. The early start for lobster, and then my friends have seen sea bass roll up on them.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, when do you have time to go, and when is it right?
Right.
I get in, I might dive a spot for 10 minutes and be like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm going to dive another bit, because I go off of how I feel in the water, and I trust that over anything else. Unless I see, when you see one, but if I get in a spot and I'm like, yeah, it just, if I don't feel it, I know what I need to see to make it happen generally.
Right.
And it's certain things. People, they're not in the bed feeding. They do randomly feed, kayakers fishing, but they're not in there actively chasing bait. They're in there just to chill. So, especially if you're in the kelp, I'd say, just move as slow as possible. As slow as possible. Don't shoot from the surface. Don't shoot. Exhale and get a foot below the surface. Don't shoot from the surface.
Right. That goes with everything, too. I mean, for those of you that are wondering, everything.
Yeah,
Toronto, anything.
I don't care how flat the ocean is. The ocean's still moving, and you don't realize it. And there's no way you're not in your natural aiming, or body mechanics.
Right.
And so, even on a flat, calm day, that ocean's still moving up and down, up and down. So you're going to be off. You might get lucky and hit it, but most of the time you're probably going to miss or tear out of the fish or something.
So, moving on now. What you just said isn't my. It's just nice to have that reinforced about the white sea bass. I'm like, okay, so I'm not chasing my tail. And it's cool. It's like, I actually do know some shit. That's great. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about kelp patties, or just offshore, like fishing or diving, because you've done it for years, both, just traditional fishing and then spearfishing. But how do you approach, now we have, I guess, AIS and everything else, so we kind of know where the fish are, but how do you like to approach kelp, patty hopping, as we call it?
How do I approach it? Well, if I'm on my big boat, my charter boat, I have side scanning sonar, and you don't always pick up fish on it, but generally on a patty, as I roll up, I scan the patty and know if anything's on there. Diving, you don't always need a lot of fish on there for diving, depending on how many people you have on there. My advice to anybody, diving patties is hop in for 5 minutes at the most. If you don't see anything within 5 minutes, move on, because you're just going to waste your day. And if you saw one fish and you took a shot and you're hoping, or maybe there was a couple and you took a shot and missed, and they keep coming by, but they're not close enough, they're never going to come close enough, probably because you're chasing them. Don't chase the yellowtail or the dorado on the patties, Hunt them just like you would hunt a white sea bass. Let them come to you. Swim with them and away from them, then they'll come to you, and then kind of bend back towards them.
Nice.
So, too many people. Yeah, too many. I see a lot of stuff from the wheelhouse, when we're diving, and just through the years, and it's amazing how people who I thought knew better would chase fish.
Yeah.
I was, what are you doing? Why are you chasing the fish?
I feel like, especially on the patties, because they're not going anywhere.
Well, they will.
They will, but if you let them pass by.
So I tell everybody, I say, look, you got two guys in the water.
Right.
If a school of yellowtail or dorado come up, don't get excited and shoot right away. Both of you guys make 2 or 3 dives with the fish. They're going to come so close to you, and don't put your gun out like, oh, okay, I could have had that one. Let them come in. Don't look at them. They're going to come in close enough to where you can take a nice shot and stone one. The school won't spook. Your buddy can shoot one. Everybody goes and rushes and dives and shoots a fish. There's a mutual friend of ours years ago. It's back in 2016. I took him out on my skiff. well, I'm not going to say any names, but I told him on this patty, we were looking for bluefin. And I told him, I said, don't shoot a yellowtail. If you want a bluefin, at that time there had been bluefin around patties, and so I said, don't shoot it. We're only looking at this thing because I marked a few fish. Made some drops. I'm glassing, and him and one of my best friends were on the boat and my skiff, and then I glass up. Cows foaming. This person shoots a yellow. His stuff's all tied up. I run up to that. My buddy Brian, he was ready, but he didn't get an opportunity. I rolled up. I threw an iron on my surface rod, on my long rod, and got spooled in about 1 second. But yeah, so it's like if you have some target in mind, if I don't know where I went on that, but it's about just be calm, let the fish get used to you, and then take a nice shot. Then you're not going to deal with the yellowtail running into the kelp patty and causing all kinds of disturbance. And once you get a yellow in the kelp patty, rarely are you going to get those kelp fish back within a couple hours.
Right?
They're going to go deep. Most of the time, yellows will go deep. The mahi go out.
Okay.
So if you're not seeing any mahi that came through, swim further away from the patty. Everybody goes and hangs out at the patty like they're going to shoot a calico bass or a sea bass. The fish aren't under the patty. They're around the patty. Stay a good 40, 50 feet away from the patty. Because when you shoot a nice fish and you can't stop it and it goes into the kelp, it's just you have a chance of losing it, and you're going to make so much disturbance.
Right.
So
you notice you talk about where the fish are, like you said, with the mahi being far away, which I've seen all that too. You notice, are they up current or like with yellowtail being more up current, or mahi?
All of them are going to be more on the up swell side.
Okay.
When you roll up to a patty, you can tell which way the patty is drifted by the tail hanging, right?
Right.
Whichever way that tail's pointing is most likely where that fish is going to hang out most of the time.
Okay.
Now, yellowfin tuna will hang out downswell of a patty most of the time.
That's what I remember hearing.
They're different.
Okay.
So, each fish kind of has their own thing.
Yeah.
You shoot a couple yellows on a patty, make it drop to 40 feet, I bet money you see them. Most people won't, because there's usually a murk layer at 30 that turns black, but if you got the balls while you're offshore.
Yeah, I was told that you drop to 60 and scare them all up, and your buddy's waiting right there, and they always come right by you, and then boom, like one of the guys just...
Yeah, they hang deep. I mean, it's nothing for a yellowtail to go 300 feet deep. Yeah. And we'll catch them in Baja at 300 to 400 feet. When I was in Hawaii, I caught a freaking 50-pound amberjack at 940 feet. we were fishing Onagas.
Yep.
And we were commercial, like fishing them, hand line, but then on a banji reel. But yeah, 50-pound amberjack at 940 feet.
Wow,
amazing.
That must have been. I mean, that's what I think about the ocean is so incredible, is that we live by these these guidelines and rules, and then there every now and then there's a fish or something that just.
But I looked it up. And I just looked it up online, and they say to 1,200 feet. I never knew amberjack hung out that deep. 1,200 foot.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I know the big ones are deep, I guess.
But you know what? Let me add on that, kelp patty or, East Coast people on a Sargasso weed line, or anywhere with a weed line or whatever. That's all our kelp patties are, just weed lines, basically. If there's somebody fishing or diving it, don't. It's theirs. Let them finish. It's everybody's ocean, but it's the first person who found it.
Yeah, too many people, I will say this, like from my own little public service announcement, I've seen too many divers make us look really bad by jumping on fishing, guys are fishing it, or even asking him, and he's in the middle of catching a fish, hey, are you good if we dive? It's like, sometimes there's a lot of patties and sometimes there's not, but too bad, so sad. find that patty line where you find that first patty and follow the current, and you're bound to find another one.
They're all current breaks.
Yeah.
And usually if there's one, there's going to be another one or two around. Look for the streaks in there. That's the current breaks, and they're usually on current breaks. Yeah, last year, I guess there was a video. Somebody up in L.A. was down this way, diving tuna right off the New Loan. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, granted, the fishermen are they do their own things, but, I mean, diving is diving. You basically, a guy can pull up to a kelp patty and fish it and not ever bother the fish. If you get in, you're going to spook them.
Right.
So, yeah, you be a little respectful of the fisherman, or the other diver or whatever.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's unique about fishing is that you could limit out on a patty, and with spearfishing, I mean, you could get a couple fish, but if you're lucky, you don't spook them. But really, as soon as you put a shaft through Johnny, Timmy and Tommy run off, and then that's the end of that.
Now, if you stone them and there's no commotion, you can shoot them all day.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably, three of us probably shot 10 yellows off of a patty. Every shot was a stone shot. There was no commotion in the water.
Right.
So, they didn't see Timmy swimming around with a shaft in him.
No, seriously, that's the biggest thing is, get that fish under control. It's just, take a good, clean shot. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, is just be patient. If you don't give them, they're not going to, if you don't give them anything to be afraid of, they'll come closer and come closer. And then,
yellows are the stupidest fish. I
know.
Yellows, I've watched yellowtail beat up makos and make them throw up and eat the, that's a thing. They hit makos in their stomach and then they throw up what they've eaten and then the yellowtail eat it. Yellowtail are mean fish. They're not like a nice fish, so they don't have a lot of fear like a bonita or a sea bass who isn't, one that's just out there on the prowl,
Yeah.
They're big time predators. So they don't fear much.
Oh, yellowtail. They're so dumb. Yeah. So another topic I'd like to discuss with you is, for those of you that haven't seen or don't know, but Matt, he owns Captain Bly Spearguns.
Mm-hmm.
And, mass equals accuracy is kind of the theory of your kind of, I guess.
It is. There's a point of, you don't need that much mass. In the last few years, I've been working how much can I shrink down to where
right get away with it.
Yeah, so I've been kind of working that boundary where that happy medium is. It's still kind of under the philosophy of nothing under 3 pounds for every band.
Right.
On a gun.
Yeah.
I used to think more to 4 pounds, but 3. I've made a few 5 bands that were right about 3 pounds, and there's a little more feel in the handle. Not as bad as some production guns out there that are really light and shoot a lot of bands, but there's that happy medium. I think if you stick with 3 pounds, you're going to be fine on your accuracy.
Yeah.
So
I think your guns, I was always amazed by. Is your background in carpentry?
No.
Because they're beautiful, and yeah, they are beautiful. And if you watch the symmetry, the lines, and the path that you carve out for your bands to go, I actually have a gun over here that I tried to do that. And
I've got some Frankensteins from years ago.
Yeah, it did not look like that, but it was definitely inspired by the Captain Bly.
I don't do anything on a CNC.
Uh-huh.
I have basically an 8-foot table along a wall. It's like an upside down. It's a router, but it's all built just for guns. Making guns. But all the shaping is all done by hand and eye. Everything is cut, like the track, pocket, all that. That's all cut on a center line. But all the shaping and everything, I do. It's all freehand.
It just takes so much time too, huh? How long does it take you to make a gun? Because I was kind of...
people ask me that, and it's hard to really add up all the time, because if I start from going to the lumber yard, I don't buy pre-milled stuff. I mill all my own wood and then make my blanks.
And you glue them up, or...
Yeah, epoxy laminated.
Yeah.
But, you can go buy wood and it's already basically 4 sides or 3 sides are good. But I like to pick what they call rough lumber.
Yep.
And I mill all my own stuff so I can cut it right to the size I want and everything. They're lammed up. They sit for a minimum of 2 to 3 months. After I lamb them up, straighten them up, let them sit, let them do their thing. I only build guns out of teak and then knock on teak. I've never had a teak gun move, but I'm very careful on how I deal with it. How the grain goes together when you epoxy it, it's a big thing, we can go on for days on that one.
Right.
But I learned a little bit of woodworking from my mom's second husband. Not a lot, but I've always been in construction. Boat building, I've always, I guess that's carpentry, But, growing up on boats, boat work, fiberglassing, you're always dealing with wood and stuff. I like to be in my shop and have nobody there. It's a rare time that I can focus and not worry about the world. That's a place I can go to relieve stress. Because all I'm thinking about is that next thing I'm doing on that gun. I don't have the phone on, the phone's off, nobody bothers me, But coming back to the woodworking, it's just, I started building them and I just fell into it. And I didn't want to stop,
Right.
It's hard, there's things in your life that pulled you a certain way and that you're just passionate about.
Yep. One thing with making the gun that I found, and I talked to Nick Garcia about this years ago, I was saying because I'm not very experienced, I've probably made 8 guns, but when I make a gun, every gun is kind of unique because I want to try something different that usually stimulates me to okay, I'm going to make a tuna gun now, or I'm going to make a reef gun, or I'm going to make this gun. Or I saw something like your gun, and I was like, I want to make one of those, or something like that, right? And then I will lose sleep just thinking about what's the best way to do that? What if I do this or that? And then with the gun building too, it's like you're always one chip away from just fucking up the whole thing.
One thing can screw it all up if you don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, but I've found epoxy is wonderful to fix things.
Yeah.
And you can always wrap it in carbon or something.
No, you don't want to do that. But you can always paint it, color it.
Yeah.
A good buddy of mine, Rich, he doesn't live around here anymore, but one day he goes, dude, you're such a good woodworker. I'm like, why? He goes, because nobody knows where your screw-ups are. I said, well, exactly. That's a good woodworker or carpenter. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
I've screwed guns up before, but I know how to, I've learned over the years, I can do this, it's not going to affect it, to fix it or whatever. A little chip out or pull out or something. Yeah, I mean, shoot, there's days, you look at the price of teak now at $40 a board foot. And
is it 40 now?
It's $40 a board foot.
Last time I made a gun.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
So that's $40 a board foot now.
Oh, cool.
And that's for rough. More for the milled stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, even now, I mean, I've tried to keep track of all the guns, over the years, and I don't know the number, but I mean, I still get nervous, especially on a big tuna gun where you're looking at a lot of lumber.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, crap, all right. So it's still a anxiety moment, on certain cuts.
Well, it's a trip too, because when you start, shaving down or milling down, and I remember telling my wife, I'm like, there's about, $50 of dust right there.
People laugh at me on this. What I do is scrap teak. I'm like, well, that's not useful to me, but it's useful as a stir stick right now for epoxy. But what am I going to do with it? Throw it away?
Yeah.
I'm going to use it.
I think I have a piece of scrap teak over there that I cut down the sides with, and I'm like, I'll use it for something, but I'm not throwing that away.
I don't throw. Yeah. Teak doesn't get thrown away.
No.
So, I mean, mahogany is still cheap. I'll build test guns or sometimes out of mahogany. Mahogany is great if you know what mahogany to use and you epoxy it right and let it sit and everything. It's a fine wood to use, especially if you're learning how to make guns. Don't build the first couple of guns out of teak. Build them out of mahogany.
I would say like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, literally the first gun, if you make a gun out of teak, it's like $200 of wood just to start. And then,
Well,
I mean, that was at $33 a board foot when I first started making them.
and that was
a few years
what
ago.
size gun?
That was what was it? 50 inches or something like
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
Now you take a 65-inch gun,
right,
and you're looking at $400.
Yeah.
Of wood, and all the epoxy, because
epoxy's expensive too.
200. My price is, which is a good price, is $200 for a gallon and a half now.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, you know what? 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, it was $127.
Yeah, again, because I haven't bought epoxy because the last time
Mm-hmm.
And I guess now that we're on the topic, like what? Because all epoxy is not created equal, and I have discovered that myself.
No, and then there's blushing and non-blushing. I will not use a blushing. I mean, it's fine for most people, but if you're laminating, it's fine. But blushing was originally developed for molds, because all the oils come up to the surface, right? Like West System. If you look at the data on West System, it's not, their numbers on tensile strength and compression aren't even close to a lot of other epoxies. I don't use West Systems. I was using a brand called Aero Marine.
Yep.
They used to be in San Diego. They've moved to Pennsylvania.
Oh.
I needed some more epoxy for the boat work, and they raised their price to $204 a gallon. Now they're in Pennsylvania at $60 to ship 10 pounds ground now. So I was like, all right, thank you. I've used other System 3 different stuff, and it's always been good products. So this set of epoxy, I'm using System 3 on the boat, which I'll figure it out and how I like it.
Yeah, and I've found the hard way that even if you mix, when I'm mixing a small batch, right, just to do like a small gun, some epoxies won't even fire unless you do a certain amount. Like
they will. Well, now that's not true, because if you leave it in the pot longer, it will go off. You just have to wait until you feel the warmth of the chemical reaction. Too many people use epoxies and don't let them sit. I don't care if you're mixing up 6 ounces. You should let it sit for at least 4 or 5 minutes before you apply it, because you're not letting the chemical reaction happen to do what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
And I learned that the hard way years ago with epoxy paint primers, right?
Yep.
On the boats and stuff. And it was cold, and I went back down to Pro, and I'm like, man, what the heck's going on? He's like, how long did you let it sit in the pot? I'm like, well, like 5 minutes. He's like, dude, when it's cold like this, 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, that
before
makes
you
sense.
even touch it.
Yeah.
So, for decades now, I've been using, like, on the boat the other day, I mixed up epoxy. It was cold, right?
Yep.
Mixed up 20 minutes before I needed it.
Okay.
Okay, it needs another 10 minutes. It sat for 3 ounces of epoxy. Sat for 30 minutes before I even touched it. I don't use the fast cures. I only use slow cure. Like concrete, the faster anything cures, the weaker it is.
Yeah. Yep.
So you always use a slow cure if you can.
Right. I know that, like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one too. When you go to do that coating your gun, your epoxy, you're talking about like it's days. It's a week's process that I found. Like coat.
Those. Well, when it comes to coating guns, you should. I don't feel you should ever coat a gun with full strength epoxy. You gotta reduce it some.
And why is that?
And do thinner coats. You're gonna get less checking. You know what checking is?
No.
When you brush epoxy on and it kind of like clumps in, it looks like it clumps. It's not perfectly smooth. If you take epoxy and you lay it on, it won't be perfectly smooth.
Okay.
But now over the years, I found I have a little concoction. I mix acetone with it, a certain amount, and thin layers. It's probably reduced like I'd say max 5% on that. It just depends on how thick the epoxy is, because everyone's viscosity is different. And really thin coats, and they're dry by the next day, and you'll get way less checking and a better finish.
Okay.
But if you want to take epoxy and have a butter smooth finish, like I've done on many guns for people, it's good old fashioned wet sanding and arm work and buffing it out at the end.
Okay.
To make it look like a glass.
Yeah.
You're never going to get an epoxy. Epoxy wasn't meant to finish. It's not meant to be, because there's no UV protection in epoxy.
Right. Do you
no matter what they say, everything I've read says no matter what, there's no UV protection really.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like, but we're not using it like polyester resin has UV. We use it on surfboards. They use it if you notice epoxy surfboards. How they start to really color after time.
Yep.
It's because they don't have the UV inhibitors like polyester resin.
Well, that makes sense.
So, but on a spear gun, it's not out in the sun every single day, so it's not a big deal.
How about as far as your finishes? I mean, is there a secret to that, or you don't have to share if you don't want? But like, how do you like to finish your guns?
Oh God, I'm all over the place.
Okay.
I'm all over. Some of my guns have a light epoxy coating. I only have a couple of guns anymore that I use. My one gun that you saw, that white gun, that's my 85% of the time 52-inch 3-band. That's my Baja gun. That one's painted. It's stained white, and then I messed around with the laser engraver and stuff. So, but I have my halibut gun is just oiled. My tuna guns are all on Pope guns, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
There's only a couple guns that I have that I don't, people don't use.
No, very
on
cool.
The boat and whatnot.
That makes sense.
It just varied. I say, have fun with it. Have fun with it. Do different stuff. If you're going to use an acrylic paint on the bottom, then you have to coat it in epoxy. Or System 3 has a water-based clear finish that is so freaking hard. That is like if you want to put a good, clear, hard finish on a gun, the System 3 stuff.
Okay.
Literally, you add water to it.
Interesting.
It's mind blowing how hard it gets. I tried to sand it. I mean, I was like, 150. No, I had to put some 80 grit on it. So it gets really hard. Better than epoxy for coating a gun.
Why do you stay away from mahogany? Is there a reason for that, or you just if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing with teak? Or
there's only one wood in the world that's meant to be in the ocean all the time. Teak.
Yeah.
There's just so much oil and silica in the gun that it's not gonna rot. It's not gonna move like mahogany. You've picked up a piece of teak and a piece of mahogany. There's a huge difference in the weight.
Right.
Because of all the oils and silica in the wood. Teak tears up your bits and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather work with teak, just because I've worked with it so much. But mahogany tears out more. It chips more. It's
I have noticed that too.
It's harder to touch. Mahogany has its place, and like I said, if you're learning how to make a gun, but I'm a custom gun builder. I want to build you a gun that's going to last you forever. I don't care about any other thing than I know that's tried, true, and tested. One of my clients lost his halibut gun out in Point Loma. It was in the water for 1 year and 10 months. Somebody found it. I cleaned it up. There's nothing wrong with that teak. Parts were rusted, and corroded and whatnot, but the blank laminated perfect.
Oh, very cool.
So that just makes me feel better of that my process of making the blanks is good.
Yeah, and so I kind of look at it too. I'm not a gun builder I'm not. And if I make a gun, I want to make it so I can hand it off to my son because I'm only going to make this thing once just because the amount of time. And so if I'm going to do it, I'd rather over-engineer the thing.
If you make a teak gun properly and you laminate properly and you do all your steps properly and you take care of that gun and don't let it get weathered and dried out, that gun, there's no reason that gun should last forever. years ago at one of the lumber places, they had teak that was on the deck of the Ohio battleship during World War II. And me and a buddy made some guns out of it. It's pretty freaking cool. But that teak was from the 30s or 40s when it was cut down on the deck of a battleship, and it made perfect guns.
I've heard of similar stories like that, you know, from the Navy. Yeah.
So, I mean, the fishing boat, the Royal Polaris here in San Diego, long range, legendary boat. My nephew used to run a sport boat, but he got some railing off of the Royal Polaris. I laminated it up last year when I had my shoulder surgery. Him and the kid that used to work for me and my other nephew came out, and when I was recovering, I taught them how to build guns. So that was pretty fun. And his gun, was off the Royal Polaris, so we reused it, and now it's going to live again.
Very cool.
So
yeah, I do like that whole like reduce, reuse kind of thing. It's good, especially teak because it's a limited resource, really, and now they're not even exporting the old growth.
Not all teak is created equally. Right. There's only one kind of teak to use.
Old growth?
It's old growth, but it's only from one region.
Right. So when I was in the Middle East and Burma, like that, we were so close to that side of the world, you could get it.
Burmese teak is the best teak in the world. I don't know why, but boat builders, gun builders, carpenters have always heard that.
So a lot of the teak now are people down in Nicaragua and South America.
Well, plantation teak has not even half of the oils. It's knotty. It's going to move on you. I had acquaintance I know was in Indonesia for a while. Oh man, get this teak made here and get these things laminated up so cheap. And he brought them here, and every single one went whoop.
Yep.
African teak is not teak. It's a type of mahogany. So
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's crap to work with too. It's not a good. You don't build a spear gun out of it.
I've tried it. Yeah.
So, I use African mahogany, not African teak, but African mahogany and Santo mahogany if I do stuff.
African mahogany is super hard, right? I mean, I think when I was overseas, one of the things I did in my time off was I was making blanks because I was bored. And I went to the wood because everything's so cheap over there. When you're on that, wherever you're at in the region of the world, it's like, I want to see what's cheap here that I can bring back. And I went to the lumber yard, and it was like a quarter the price for teak and African mahogany.
Doesn't have to get shipped around the world, and then it's only touched 2 people's hands, not 7 people's hands,
right,
to get here.
Yeah, and it was funny because it was newer cut teak, so someone had told me, you might want to let it dry out a little bit. And I was there for 6 months, and I hung it in our one of our vans at work, and they were like, what the hell is going on here? I'm like, I got something I'm working on, but I ended up, by the time the trip, I had it laminated up, and by the time I got home, it had set for a couple of months, and it was ready to go. But it was really cool to go to the lumberyard in somewhere else in the world.
In what country was that?
It was in Bahrain.
Oh, in Bahrain.
Yeah.
I haven't been there since 91.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot. I think where I was staying in Bahrain didn't even exist in 91.
I did port security there for 3 months in 92. Coast Guard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Yeah. What time of year was that?
April, so not the hottest, but it was hot.
Shamal season, though.
It was hot.
Real windy.
It was windy, sand blowing. I mean, it was still hot in your gear and everything, but it wasn't the 120.
No,
like the summer.
I remember that. That was terrible.
Yeah, I could stay away from that place for the rest of my life.
Yeah, been there, done that. Check.
So
pretty cool though, I guess. It was a good experience. Okay. So we've talked about your guns. We've talked about your background and white sea bass and everything in between, I guess. But Lineage Charters, what's new for you, and what are you trying to do this year? Because the season is just going to be starting here shortly.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, last year was like the land of mahi. That was crazy.
Never seen that, even in the warm water year when I was shooting wahoo at the Coronado Islands. In 15, was there even close to the amount of Dorado? Who knows?
That was bizarre. I heard.
Thank God, because we didn't have crap for yellows last year. Everybody thinks I'm glad you went to this because everybody thinks, oh, the warm water, it's an El Nino. No, we've been in a La Nina for 3 years. We're slowly coming out of it, and they're forecast to transfer into a neutral ENSO, they call it. Is what like 80% of the models are showing. And if any diver should know this, even offshore bluefin diving, you got below 20 feet, it got a lot colder. It's just the warmer water on surface, but below we've had way colder than normal water temps. And people don't realize that because people go on their boat and they see the water temp. Oh my goodness, it's 74 degrees. That's from the sun. That's from radiational heating, So hopefully we get into a neutral pattern this year. More yellowtail back. The boat, we got brand new engines on the boat. Just wrapping that up. That's a huge investment, and I'm excited. Brand new John Deere's. So new top speed might be up there around 18 knots now.
Wow. And that boat, that's a big boat.
Yeah. So not that I'm going to run at 18 knots, but there's days where I get a call from somebody that's 10 miles away. Now I can punch it at 15 knots and be there in 40, 45 minutes instead of an hour.
Well, one thing about your kind of niche market is you do multi-day trips, right? That's kind of your thing.
I do, and I said our best selling trip is a 2.5, whether you're fishing or diving. 4 guys, and it just gives you so much time in the water or fishing. 2 full days, and I don't know. I mean, if I didn't own boats and been on the ocean my whole life, that'd be awesome. Just go out with 4 guys instead of going on a bigger dive boat with a bunch of people or fishing, with a bunch of people. So that is our niche. I also, on that same boat, I commercial fish bluefin, so I'm always doing something different. We might have one trip, diving trip, and the next 2 trips are fishing trips, and then I have a space I blocked out for commercial fishing, then I'm fishing, then I go back to running 3 dive trips, so that's what I like is the variety. Right. Electronics, we have all the same electronics that big sport boats have on there. Finding fish is not a problem. I think I found the easiest way to put people on bluefin tuna. I sometimes I amaze myself at how easy it is. But it has to do with electronics and just knowing the behaviors after, all these years of dealing with the bluefin.
Well, do you want to talk about that? Because it seems like every year they're a little different, or it's weekly or monthly.
Hourly sometimes.
Yeah.
Hourly.
Because I deal with side scan and all that stuff too at work, my real job. But and then there seems like there's like a couple different ways. There's I guess going neutral, checking on the depth sounder, jumping in on foamers, getting ahead of them, go dead in the water. That's pretty much.
I drive right over the top of them.
And then so how do you do it? Because I've done that with the depth sounder and try to track them and follow them.
If you're at idle speed and you're in your boat, the biggest thing that's going to scare any fish when you're approaching is not the throttle. Well,
it's shifting.
It's the shifting. It's a sudden sound, but more or less than anything, it's the slapping of the hull. Never approach any school from down swell if you can help it. At least cross swell, whatever. I've seen it time and time again when the only opportunity I have is to run up swell and get on this spot, and I get close and I'm just like, and then all of a sudden I just a good slap on the hull and poof, gone. I'll take a breezer, right? And they're just milling on the surface, right? one engine in gear, idling, right on top of them. They don't even splash. They'll make a few swirls. They swirl down under the boat. They come right under the boat. You know, but most people don't have the patience to actually just go, okay, I'm just going to inch forward. You're going to catch up to them. You know what I mean? But every minute's different. The vast majority of them nowadays, though, with the sonar, I don't even want a foamer. Because who wants to kick to... Most people can't kick to a foamer and punch a dive.
Right.
Maybe 10% of the spear fishermen can do that.
Yeah, you better be in good shape.
Really good shape. You know, so most of the time, like, smaller boats will be running up to foamers and they'll put them down. That's fine. I'll find them with the sonar and get right on top of them. At 60 feet, drop the divers in and they're at 30 feet.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the foamer is the tip of the iceberg. That's people... Yeah.
Yeah, but those fish are focused on something else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? They're not just relaxing or just swimming.
They're just crushing bait, trying to...
Yeah, so, and they're swimming faster. It's going to be harder to shoot one. There's more shit going on. People just get... You know, everybody comes out on trips with these grander dreams, you know, and you know, sometimes they happen and other times they don't, you know. You can't... One thing I've learned in the last, 6 years is it's sometimes it's really hard on your, not your ego, but your self-confidence, because you're like, man, I put these people in front of a bunch of fish. Nobody shot anything. But there's nothing I can do. All I can do on a dive trip is give you the best opportunity. And whether you follow my instruction or, somebody else's instruction, is up to you and to close the deal. But so many people come out, and whether it's their excitement or whatever, they can't seem to follow a few simple directions that will give them the opportunity.
And what would those directions be? Or I guess depends on the situation.
On my boat,
yeah.
And like I said, 95% of the time, I hit a buzzer. That means you go into the water and you dive immediately. It doesn't mean you slide into the water and you fix your snorkel and your mask and take a couple breaths and waste 30 seconds because the fish are gone. The thing is bluefin all tuna are very inquisitive. And they're inquisitive of a boat. They're like, oh, what is that? They like to come under the boat, whether it's for a couple minutes or an hour, and you're chumming or whatever. But I get them under the boat. I have to make that call as the operator as I'm running the boat when to send the people. I'm not 100%, I mean, it looks like a good school. I send them and then it peters out.
Right.
But so many times I watch these people, they slide into the water and they're fucking with their stuff and their gear's not right. And a few guys have really perfected it. They stand on my swim stuff, and it's huge on my boat. And they stand and they literally take a breath and dive straight in. They hold their mask and their guns out in front of them and they dive straight into the water. And those guys are always shooting fish. Because as I come over that school, those fish are like looking up. They see a diver coming down, they get inquisitive. So many times I mark fish at 100 feet, they meet the divers at 50, 40 feet. I mark them at 60 feet, they're meeting the divers at 30 feet, 20 feet.
That's been my experience the whole time. You could pretty much cut it in half no matter where they're at.
Not every time, but if you get in at the right time and they see you and they're a little inquisitive, then they're going to come to you, But if somebody doesn't get down there soon enough, the school's just going to keep going.
Right.
And then, because you were on the surface dilly-dallying, messing with your stuff,
taking that one last breath.
I've got a guy that's been coming out for 5 years with me. And he's 73 now. Last year I got him 110-pound tuna.
Nice.
That was probably one of my highlights last year.
That feels good.
Because, God, I hope that at 72 I can still be doing that.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's the inspiration.
And that guy didn't even start diving until he was 50 years old.
Good for him.
So that's what I get out of running trips now. Is I've shot enough fish. I don't care. I just get so much enjoyment of watching people have such a good time. Because as I've gotten older, I realize, I live on the water. It's not something new to me. Like people come out on 1 or 2 trips a year. I've realized like that's such a special time for them. I want to do everything to make it happen for them.
No, I think anybody, like, as I worked on the water for years too, I think I completely understand what you mean. It's not, the novelty for us isn't there for certain, it's got to be a pretty unique day to be like, holy crap. For me, for more importantly, like, other people go out and you just change their life with a 15-pound yellowtail.
Yeah. No, last year I had a buddy of mine. He passed away. It's about a little over a year ago. Big wave surfer, was surfing Todos, had a house down in Baja, was coming back and got in a car wreck in Baja and passed away. His girlfriend brought her son out this year, who spearfishes a little bit, and he got like a 20-pound bluefin. I got him on a 20-pound bluefin. That was just amazing.
Hey, it tastes better, man.
That 15-year-old kid, that was his birthday present. And I taught Jeff, the kid who passed away. I mean, I don't call him a kid, he's 38, 40 years old, but I mentored him at fishing and spearfishing. So it was really cool that his girlfriend, brought her out, and it's like, I want you to teach him, So it was cool that he was able to get a fish that day, and I mean that made his year.
I think that's the coolest thing about having the skill set that you have. Anybody out there that has a unique skill set to be able to share that with others is such a cool position to be in.
And I have some groups, whether it's fishing or diving, might catch one fish, and it was the best day of their year. And that's the people I enjoy, because no matter what, anybody who knows me, you're not going to find very many people with more of a passion for this stuff than I do, and the drive to like just find fish, and do whatever. But I don't know where I'm going with this. It's such a,
you can't fake really loving this, because anybody that's done it is a ton of work.
But I feel so bad. Like, I did everything I could to catch these people some fish, and nothing's cheap anymore.
Right.
I don't come from money. I was raised in a very poor family, so I understand, like, hey, you're selling out some money. I try to keep my prices as low so I can try to make a living.
Yeah.
And people can go fishing, but it's just that I feel so bad on my own psyche, like after a hard day of fishing, but there's nothing I can do.
Right. I've had those days with friends.
But it's awesome to see those days when there was a special thing, and it was just the best day for these people. And there was just no special fish. No, they had a great day. They caught a fish or two.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Wow, I didn't deal with my phone for a day. I didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people can't just step away like you or I go out in the water and turn everything off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I want to kind of end with this question. With all your experience, I mean, like you said, Baja in the late 70s and 80s and all that stuff, just with your life. And I've seen it in my experience a little bit, but I can't imagine what you're like. Is this change in the culture? Is the culture change, like spearfishing or just fishing in general? How do you think, like, the culture, what is your opinion, and how many different types of ways has the culture switched from, from whatever it was back then to now, especially with social media? And do you think it's a good or a bad thing, or indifferent?
Yeah, that's a hard question. It's harder to explore places like we did back before technology, because you didn't have Google Earth, you didn't have all these ways to find stuff out. So that's why places get ruined quicker than normal. Just somebody told somebody, and somebody told somebody, and it grew from there.
Yeah.
Social media, I don't, I have a love-hate relationship. I don't even deal with my own social media. I have a younger gentleman,
right? We know him, yeah.
And Derek, and
Derek.
I personally, I can't stand social media. I could never go on it again and be just as fine. But it's the age we live in, and we have to do it.
You have a business.
Yeah, and so it's a it's a love-hate relationship for me, because there's some good things that come out of social media, but I think there's a lot of stuff that isn't good out of social media, as in people don't take the time to learn things. I don't think they might know how to do something, but they don't understand how to do it. And there's a huge difference of understanding how to do something and doing something, if that makes sense. So with YouTube and all this, there's so much FOMO. Everybody's got FOMO. Oh my God, the yellow color bite. Oh my God, I got to post it right now. Oh my God. And then, 1,000 people are out there the next day.
Right.
I don't know. It's just the age we live in.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just old.
That's weird, man, because there's a group of guys like, you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like, I could give two shits about being the face of anything or even having social media. I've met a lot of really cool friends from social media, which has been great, because anytime you go anywhere in the world, it's like, oh, I got to hook up, or I can hook my friends up here. But, and it's a great platform to share and mentor people that way.
In the beginning of internet and social media, back when there was, the Spearing Foreman, or what was that old forum that was on there 20 years ago?
Yeah, Spear.
But you know what? That was we didn't have the Instagram and the whole instant, gratification.
Yeah.
People were connecting. I mean, there was drama and shit, just like social media, but it was still people were hooking up together, and people had mentors and whatnot. I don't see mentorship, I don't know what you call it, but I don't see a lot of people getting into the sport, and I don't see having mentors, and I don't see people willing to put work forth to obtain their goal.
So that's one thing I've gotten more messages about. Hey, what about this and that? I was like, well, it seems like you're kind of like
fishing.
You're going a little too fast. I mean, there's other things before that need to happen. It's like, how do I shoot a 200-pound bluefin? Well, let's start with a sargo.
Well, I get people come out on the boat, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If you want to come try to dive on tuna, that's your own prerogative, But these people have never even shot a yellowtail, and want to go shoot a tuna. Not that there's no difference shooting a 20-pound yellow and 20-pound tuna, but if you're diving for 100-pound tuna or bigger, even 80, 50-pound tuna will drown you in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Yeah. I've had 20-pound yellows that fight really hard, that no matter how hard I kicked, I got pulled under. But that's what's the social media thing. I've always preached this. I rarely ever I don't like photos of myself taken. I don't have to take a picture of a fish to remember it for my own life. And if you look through my social media stuff, that's why I videoed a lot, because people are, no, you have to be on social media. Okay, well, I don't want me on social media. Yeah. So I'm going to put videos because that's what it pertains to. Right. I don't care about a picture of somebody holding a fish.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can actually dissect my video and go, oh, that's how he's shooting big calicos, or you know what I mean? I'll throw it out there. Maybe somebody wants to do their homework and, that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't want people knowing what I'm doing.
I know.
I don't want people knowing what I'm doing on the water unless I tell them.
I had a friend of mine, actually a cousin, who was pretty popular on social media, and she's like, you need to get in front of the camera more, Brett. And I was like, I understand why, because there are people that do want to have that connection.
Yeah.
But then I feel like it would be very genuine if I was doing it for the sake of just being in front of the camera. That's not really me.
I've learned in the last 5 years to be more out in the public.
Yeah.
I'm just not a public person.
Right.
As in, I'm not, you and I sitting here, there's a microphone, I'm comfortable there. I don't like getting up in front of a lot of people. That's just not me. I'm the guy who just wants to go over there and run the boat, and at the end of the day, go, good job, buddy.
Right.
Yeah. I don't care about likes. I don't care about followers. I care about being on the water and having fun. So, social media, I don't know.
Well,
that's a long conversation. That
I think it takes a bit of maturity, and I think I have found you have to constantly check yourself. Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I getting validation if someone says, "Hey, you're great"? Well, why do I? Am I doing this to get validation? And if so, why the fuck do I care?
Shit, people, your guns are so beautiful. I like blush on the inside. I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, oh thanks. I mean,
yeah. They are beautiful though.
They're beautiful, but I think over beauty, I think the most important thing is that the function.
Yeah.
I've seen Frankenstein guns that shoot great, that look like hell.
I have another one.
And that's all, that's all that matters. But
no, that's Colin Smith told me that. He's like, as long as you got a straight track, Brett, and you can, a big enough thing.
People ask me all the time, what's the best gun on the market? Best gun is the one you shoot best. Bottom line, doesn't matter who makes it. It could be an A.B. Miller. Yeah. If you're deadly with that A.B. Miller, that's the best gun for you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's
supposed to be about, and that's the weird thing with the industry. To me, it was supposed to be about shooting fish, spending time in the ocean, not name brand stuff, because I have seen like a lot of the surfing kind of culture come into spearfishing where it's like, oh, I got Rife this or Rife that. Nothing against Rife, but like, so it's all very like, oh, what wetsuit or, name brand this and name brand that. And it's like, the guys that I knew that mentored me in diving were the dudes like at Home Depot buying shit to like build your stuff in your garage.
I used to buy clear float line from Home Depot, and we make our own float lines.
Yeah, I still do. Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. It's a different world. We'll see where it goes in the next few years.
Yeah,
hopefully there's still fish to shoot and catch.
No.
Just remember out there, fresh fish is better. So you don't have to take the whole ocean with you anymore.
No, that's a great thing, a message to end on too. So,
and I'm guilty of it myself. Back in the day, it was the mentality of it couldn't run out.
Yeah.
But we've all seen it. It does run out, and there are limits. We might not all agree with them, but there's limits for a reason. And I don't want to harvest a fish if it's not going to eat good.
Right.
And with that, whether you're on my boat, we take care of fish. I mean, that's one of our top priorities. But whatever you're doing, take care of your fish. Can't stand to see people leave these big fish sitting out on the deck for hours. Oh, it was biting. So one person stop and deal with that fish so it's in proper,
right.
It's a lot of meat. So
I think
I see a lot of fish go to waste just because people overcatch and then it doesn't get packaged right, and then so much of it goes in the trash. It's a shame.
Right. I think too, it's not necessarily maturity. It's easy to say maturity, but I think it's personal growth.
Yeah.
Like, you just spend time, you just kind of get used to it and grow. And like we were talking about before we started filming, like the way I thought maybe 20 years ago, I don't necessarily think that now,
Oh, no.
So it's, it's just personal growth and fishing in general, animals.
Understanding the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says. Sportsmen, whether you're fishing, diving, hunting, whatever, do way more for the environment than any environmental group has ever done. With Ducks Unlimited and all the conservation that we put forth so that we're going to have something. And we need to keep doing that. And we need to be proactive so they don't take it away from us.
I could not agree more.
And in closing, last thing is, you're spearfishing, don't do something to somebody else that you wouldn't want, back to the jumping on somebody's patty or somebody's diving a bed or a spot, don't go anchor on them. Go find your own freaking fish. It's going to be more satisfying.
Yeah. So. And if you want to go offshore this summer, hit up Matt at
Hit me up.
Charters. For sure. I can speak secondhand of the service that he provides. I have seen him talk to a lot of guys in the community that have been around a long time, and I haven't heard a bad thing about him. He's an old salt, but he puts you on some fish. And and again, thanks, Matt, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And the more of these I do, the more I like.
Yeah, that's cool. It's just chatting.
Just chatting. All right, guys. Well, hopefully I'll see some of you guys on the water. And if not, have fun. Safe dive.
Yeah. What's your Instagram?
Lineage Charters and Captain Bly Spearguns.
Okay.
Yeah, my phone number's on both of them.
Perfect.
It's the boat phone number. It's the gun phone number. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks.